How are you, my
President
peeps?
Biden has announced
How are
destination
you?
Wednesday
How
night
are
in his
you?
first
I'm
time speaking
finishing
to the
up.
American
I'm
people
finishing
since
up.
dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. In a post this morning on X, Biden said, quote,
My
tomorrow
wig is
evening at 8 p.m.
finished. My
Eastern,
wig is
I will
almost
address
done.
the
I had
nation
also
from the
put a
Oval
little,
Office on
few
what
more
lies
here to
ahead
pat
and
it
how I
up, to
will
get
finish
it
the
patted
job
and not
for
so
the American
scanny
people.
in the middle.
The president is returning to Washington, D.C. today from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, after isolating due to COVID. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made his first public statement since President Biden ended his re-election campaign. Blinken spoke about Biden's accomplishments and said the president is focused on continuing his work for the American people.
What he's intensely focused on is the work that remains over these next 6 months to continue the efforts, the work that we've been doing, particularly trying to bring peace to the Middle East, ending the war in Gaza, putting that region on a better trajectory. In so many ways across the board, we are now stronger around the world than we've been. So he's determined to continue that work, and I'm determined to continue with him.
Former President Donald Trump's campaign is switching gears, wasting no time criticizing Harris. The campaign is calling the Democratic platform a failure regardless of who leads the party. Trump posted on Truth Social saying the Biden-Harris administration did not properly protect him and he was forced to take a bullet for democracy. The former president is set to hold a campaign rally tomorrow in Charlotte, North Carolina. CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman joins me with more. So, Katrina, we're already seeing some of the attacks take shape against Harris. How do you see the Trump-Vance ticket adjusting their strategy?
Hi, Lindsay. Good to be with you. So my sources on the Trump campaign say that they don't really view this as a big shift. They say that Harris is really Biden 2.0. She owns every inch of the Biden presidency, of his policies, and that they've been preparing for this potential change in candidate for a little while now. However, they do view Harris as more to the left than Biden. So while Trump is up against yet another prosecutor, they say that she was too ultra-liberal as a prosecutor and plan to emphasize her record as being too soft on crime, especially when it comes to migrant and violent crimes.
And Katrina, a second presidential debate has been set for September 10th. What has Trump been saying about this?
Trump has been posting on Truth Social, and even though he formally agreed to it, he is now railing against the fact that the debate is supposed to take place on ABC News. He says that ABC and George Stephanopoulos are no longer worthy of the debate. He thinks ABC has been too kind to Biden and Harris in their coverage since Biden stepped down. What Trump is asking for now is he wants the debate held on Fox News. He says that he hopes there will be many debates. He said in
But
one
I
of
thought
his
he said he
posts
hates
that
Fox
he
News.
no longer wants it to take place on ABC. He hasn't formally said that he will actually refuse to take part in that debate, but he is really pushing for a new venue now.
What else is on the agenda for Trump this week, and what does the fact that he's making a stop in North Carolina say about that state potentially being in play?
So today, Trump is holding a press call with the president and the former president of the National Border Patrol Council, and he's using this to really focus on what he views as Harris's failure at the border. He likes to call her the border czar. He says that she's only been down there once in a politically safe area, and that she supports decriminalizing illegal border crossing as well as free healthcare for illegal immigrants. And then, as you mentioned, he is headed to North Carolina for a rally tomorrow in Charlotte, which he views as a crucial state. And what's significant too is this will be the second rally since the assassination attempt on his life, and the first one since President Biden stepped out of the race.
Trump make me laugh.
Trump is
Enough time,
appealing
make me laugh, you
the
know.
$454 million
Enough time,
judgment
make me laugh,
against
man.
him in his New York civil fraud case. His lawyers say the ruling should be tossed out because it violates centuries of New York case law. They claim the case was politically motivated, some allegations should have been barred based on the statute of limitations, and that no one was harmed by the alleged fraud. Some of those arguments were brought up frequently during the more than 2-month-long bench trial. In February, Judge Arthur Engoron found that Trump, his company, and members of his family deceived banks and insurers by inflating his wealth on financial statements. Parts of the western U.S. are dealing with massive wildfires. Coming up, what those fires could mean for the air quality around the country. And Vice President Harris is getting some backing from Hollywood. Which celebrities are throwing their support behind the likely Democratic nominee? You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
You're all chosen because you are enough. You made it.
We are inviting athletes who become the next WWE superstars.
Coming from Cuba.
My dad risked his life for me having these opportunities.
I'm Braden Ray, aka Sexy BJ Ray. Who do you think you are? I see so much raw potential.
This is your moment.
It's life-changing. There is nothing else like being a WWE superstar. We're in the fight business. Athletes, movie stars, they all come out.
But more fair compete.
All kinds of fighting goes out here, not just in the octagon.
Insults, out of the cage fights.
Sean O'Malley's that.
Open the shoes, y'all.
There's no off-season in the UFC. The sickness is real.
Today it is nice to have you with us.
We are live. This is your interview.
And here's the best part about it. It's free.
That's amazing.
I'm so glad you came. Some indiscrimination. Pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight,
Collective ownership is powerful.
to keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 acres and more. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated.
It's dark, guys.
Do you
And
think there are people living in institutions
Dark.
in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
it's too dark.
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle is resigning following Monday's testimony on Capitol Hill. She was grilled for hours by lawmakers yesterday over the security failures surrounding the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace filed articles of impeachment against her Monday. Charles Maria will join us with analysis, but first let's go to congressional correspondent Scott McFarland on Capitol Hill. So Scott, Nancy Mace has since said that she's going to withdraw those articles. Was this expected today, or was this a complete surprise?
No surprise at all. Her position atop the Secret Service just wasn't tenable after her performance yesterday before the House Oversight Committee. She had members of both parties at this uniquely politically divisive moment saying the same thing, that she had to resign, not just because of the historic high-magnitude failure in Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th, that allowed a young man with an AR-15 to get a football field distance away from the former president's stage podium, but that she didn't give answers to questions Congress was ravenous to hear answers for yesterday, including where the vulnerabilities might exist, where the evidence is, what they know about the gunman, about the bullets, about the exposed site in which the shooter used to attempt to assassinate the president. She wasn't answering questions. That never sits well with Congress, especially after an incident like an attempted assassination.
So what happens next? This is supposed to be a zero-fail mission. They failed. Cheadle did say the buck stopped with her, but this certainly won't be the end of questions and concerns.
There are several investigations that have been launched. Let me run through some of them for you, Lindsay. The Secret Service has its own internal review of its failure. The results expected in about 2 months. The FBI is leading the investigation at the crime scene, that farm fairground field in Butler, Pennsylvania. There are inspectors general investigating. Those are the internal government watchdogs who look into government failures. Congress has just announced a U.S. House panel that'll probe into this. And the Homeland Security Secretary has his own independent investigation. That's for now. There could be more. The president, in his statement about this, says he looks for the results of that independent investigation. He thanked Kimberly Cheadle for her service. In her statement, Lindsay, she says this incident does not define us as an agency. Right now, there is this unique, unmitigated applause from Congress for this decision from the Secret Service director. Not seeing a lot of dissenting voices out there.
And that is interesting. It is hard to really get bipartisan agreement on any topic, but this, it seems, certainly has united both parties.
And to a degree, what happens next may divide them again. I know from my sources here on the Hill, Democrats are going to take this opportunity to try to make an argument that there are too many AR-15s available in America right now.
Should I
It's
say
making
yes?
life more difficult for law enforcement, making the public more at risk for mass shootings.
You should
There'll
say
be a
yes.
divide on that. I expect that to be a focus
should
of the
say yes to
conversation
mine.
now that the Secret Service director is gone.
I know it's not Chris and I'm out there. I'm gonna say yes to make it
Let's bring in
order.
Charles Marino. He's a former special agent for the Secret Service and a former advisor for the Department of Homeland Security. So, Charles, your reaction, did you also see this as a foregone conclusion?
I did, and it was ultimately the right call with the significant security failure that took place on the 13th, and ultimately the testimony yesterday. I think now it's time to move on from the individual, which was becoming a distraction, and focus longer term on the agency, and make sure they come out on the backside of all of these investigations and reviews much stronger. They are the premier protection agency in the world, and they need to stay that way. Now, look, I know there's been a lot of talk about lack of transparency on the part of the service. I know there's a lot of frustration from what I'm hearing from my sources within the agency that they felt like they were prevented from getting out in front and talking about this with the American people by the Department of Homeland Security. That should not happen. The Secret Service was obviously a key component involved in this, the lead agency responsible for the ultimate protection of the former president, and I think they had information that would have assured the American public that the former president was being protected in the way that he needs to be protected going forward. That's what the American people care about. I think the agency was prepared to deliver that message, to talk about it as much as they could, despite the ongoing investigations, but were prevented from doing so by the Department of Homeland Security. And that needs to be looked at. This is their parent organization. They've got oversight of the Secret Service to include, are they giving the Secret Service the resources that they need to complete this complex and important mission?
So that leads me to my next question. Can you help us understand how rank and file are feeling in this moment?
Well, anytime you have transition, it's tough. They're lucky they've got continuity there. So we'll see what that changes. But yeah, look, it's tough to lose a director. Kim Cheadle had a long career in the Secret Service. She should be commended for her service to the country. Ultimately, she took the hit on this as the leader of the Secret Service, and she was right for doing so. But let's not forget the service that she gave to the country. She stepped in to lead the agency, and as a result, she had to take the hit on this and ultimately resign. And now the agency needs to be put in a much better place and prioritized.
This is a weighted question, and I know we don't have a ton of time left, but what needs to happen now to make sure something like this doesn't happen again and to reestablish faith and trust in the service?
Well, we've got to make sure ultimately that the protectees are receiving the level of protection based not only on the overall threat environment here in the U.S., which we know is off the charts, but also their specific threat intelligence. Are the resources matching the threat assessment? And the resources should. Now, look, during these reviews, we find that they were inadequately low, then that needs to change. We need to come up with a system in place that ensures every protectee is receiving the highest level of protection that they need specifically, keeping in mind that each one will in fact vary.
Charles Marino, thank you.
Thank you.
With Vice President Harris now the likely Democratic nominee, focus is shifting to who she will name as her running mate. We look at what she will likely need to consider. And the Department of Transportation is launching an investigation into Delta's handling of its ongoing disruptions following the global tech outage, why they are still struggling to recover. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen. Because nothing ever happens in East Palestine. But it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars. Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes. Did you ever have these problems before the derailment? No, ma'am. This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing and bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
Mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon Castle here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space is so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory. There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate. Might make you look before you launch. If you have 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we have a public crisis. Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Vice President Kamala Harris just boarded the steps to Air Force Two here at Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport on her way to join Vase Andrews back to Washington, D.C. after her first campaign event as the likely Democratic nominee in the 2024 presidential race. We also now know, in addition to President Biden's Oval Office address from the White House tomorrow night, explaining why he decided to step aside. We know that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with President Biden on Thursday at the White House. That's scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It is believed that Harris will also be a part of that meeting, but we are working to get more reporting on that as well. And we know that Netanyahu, while he's in the United States, will be meeting with Republican nominee Donald Trump as well. Harris is making her first official campaign stop in Milwaukee as a presidential candidate, but a big question remains: who will be her running mate? Several names are being tossed out right now. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker told MSNBC he has yet to receive vetting materials from Harris's campaign. Meanwhile, Maryland Governor Wes Moore told CBS News he's already informed the Harris campaign he's staying in Maryland.
Are you telling us that if she said to you, Governor, I need you, America needs you, would you join me on this ticket? You would say no.
I would do anything to make sure that the vice president becomes the next president of the United States. But I'm not going anywhere. I've said very clearly and very directly to the team that I love my job.
Joining us from Washington is Jaime Moore. He's the former director of the office for the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Jaime, thank you for being with us. You know, Democrats, they have to move at a breakneck speed to make sure they have everything in place. What momentum do they have, and what challenges are they facing?
Hey, Lindsay, thank you so much for that. No, you're absolutely right about that. There's a lot that has to happen in a very short amount of time. I spoke with friends at the DNC, and the chairman who wants to have a very transparent and fair process to ensure that Kamala Harris becomes nominee in the way that she's earned. There are couple challenges. You know, they want to make sure that they are prepared for the August 7th sort of internal deadline that they created. They want to make sure that they're ready for the convention in just a few weeks. But they want to make sure that the delegates and the people and the members of the party have a say-so in this process. And so there's a lot of things that have to happen this week. And one of the things that's already happened is President Biden has already signed over the Biden Victory Fund to the Harris Victory Fund. And so those things are starting to happen, but there are a lot of technical things that have to happen too over the course of the next 24 hours.
Well, it sounds like a big driver of the conversation we are going to be having for the next few weeks will be that of a running mate. Do you think that the Democratic Party and Vice President Harris will wait until the convention to build up that excitement, that anticipation, much like Trump did with Vance? And what do you think she needs to consider when making that choice?
Well, Lindsay, there's already a lot of excitement for Vice President Harris, so I don't know if she needs to create much more. But I think she's taking this process very seriously. And you see, you have Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, helping to run this process. She's weighing all the options right now. She's getting out there. She's trying to figure out what the party needs, just like Joe Biden did when he chose her.
What would you tell her she needs? Who on the list on your screen are you seeing that appeals to you?
Yeah, she wants to have someone who's ready for day one. Look, people like Mark Kelly from Arizona look fantastic. His wife, Gabby Giffords, who's been around. He's been around, an astronaut, as a senator. She wants to have someone who she can rely on personally, who she's close with. Rory Cooper in North Carolina looks really good. He's a fantastic candidate. He's been a great two-term governor for North Carolina, a battleground state. And you have a list of others. Gretchen Whitmer, who's the governor of Michigan, who's been a fantastic governor in her second term and has a trifecta there. And other candidates, J.B. Pritzker, who I really, really love, governor of Illinois, who's done a tremendous job of helping us get ready for this convention. He has a trifecta there as well. And so there's a breadth of talent in the Democratic Party, and I think the vice president is going to make sure that she, one, has a personal relationship with this person, and two, she knows that they're ready to be president on day one, as she was.
How do you think Democrats will respond to some of the attacks we are already hearing against Harris? Her previous presidential campaign didn't make it to Iowa. She was in charge of finding root causes of the border. Republicans are saying she's further left than Biden.
Yeah, I think Vice President Harris has learned a great deal over the last 3 years, so that's just one thing. But I think the Democrats want to make sure that they understand and want to communicate a couple of things. She was right there with President Biden as he was saving the country from COVID, as he was forgiving more student loans than ever before, as he was lowering the cost of insulin $35, lowering the housing costs, appointing more black judges in the history of federal judges ever than any other president, and rebuilding the country, water, roads, bridges, internet. And so she was right there with him. I think she's going to rely on that experience as the vice president, as someone who's done more for the country that she believes than any other administration in the history. So those are going to be things that are going to come out. And then, obviously they're going to attack her in many other ways, but I think the party and the Democrats are prepared to protect her and back her up as much as possible.
Jaime Moore, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Lindsay.
President Biden is back at the White House for the first time since he ended his presidential campaign and after recovering from COVID. The president told reporters at Joint Base Andrews he was, quote, feeling well. White House Dr. Kevin O'Connor says Biden has tested negative for COVID and that his symptoms have resolved. Biden did not answer any other questions about dropping out of the race or whether Vice President Harris could beat Donald Trump. Of course, he endorsed Harris on social media within minutes of announcing he was stepping down Sunday. Earlier today, CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes previewed Biden's highly anticipated remarks set for Wednesday.
So I think he's got a couple of goals with this speech. First, obviously, releasing a statement to the American public while holed up at his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, recuperating from COVID is not how he ever wanted to announce that he would not be running for re-election. He never wanted to announce that he was not running for re-election. He wanted to keep going. And so he wants to come back here to the White House and explain in a more fulsome way on camera, in public, to the American people why he has made this decision. And then beyond that, you're right, there are all these calls from Republican lawmakers who say, hey, if he can't run for another 4 years, if he's decided to pass the torch, should he be there for another 6 months? And I expect that you'll hear a very strenuous argument from the president tomorrow night about why he is still fit to do the job, in his view, until January of 2025.
Harris is getting some backing from Hollywood. She's received endorsements ranging from rapper Cardi B to entertainment legend Barbra Streisand. Also throwing in their support, Oscar winner Jamie Lee Curtis and EGOT winner Viola Davis, just to name a few. British pop singer and songwriter Charlie XCX showed her support by calling Harris Brat, the name of her studio album, and now an overwhelming theme and attitude for millennials and Gen Zers alike. Harris took the compliment and responded by mimicking the album cover on her campaign's X page. The Department of Transportation is opening an investigation into Delta's handling of widespread flight disruptions. The airline is still struggling 4 days after last week's global tech outage. According to the flight tracking service FlightAware, hundreds of flights have been canceled today.
They're sloppy.
More delayed. CBS Minnesota reporter
You want to take them back again, brother?
this for us from the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport to talk more about these disruptions. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Lindsay, it's a little chaotic at the airport right now. Like you mentioned, lots of cancellations with Delta Airlines. Now, not this line behind me. This is the TSA line, but just beyond, that is a reticketing assistance line. And as you can see, it's pretty full. It's winding around. Dozens and dozens of travelers here at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport are impacted by cancellations with Delta. We know that at last check, FlightAware says that 77 Delta flights were canceled. All but one were with Delta. Is an investigation into Delta Airlines to ensure that it's up and running again and it's following the law, taking care of passengers. We know that Delta is working 24/7, their last statement via Twitter, to ensure that they get operations up and running again. And like I mentioned, the Department of Transportation is opening an investigation to make sure that happens. We've spoken with multiple passengers, multiple travelers, hopeful travelers who didn't know their flight was canceled until they got to the airport, some driving hours just to get in here, and learning that their flight was canceled either when they got to the airport or on the taxi ride over. So really just a lot of chaos here today. We also spoke with a local travel agent, not travel agent, but travel expert, who says to keep every single receipt if you're having issues, if you're working to get reimbursed by Delta. Keep every receipt, even ones that you think might not get reimbursed, because Delta is receiving federal pressures, federal regulation pressures on the airline. So they say to keep everything and hope for the best. They also say to look into travel insurance if you had travel insurance to help fill the gap where Delta might be lacking. And lastly, just be patient, because it is expected that this will take a lot of time. You might remember the meltdown, Southwest meltdown in December of 2022, and it took weeks, if not months, to get everything reimbursed. But Thrifty Traveler, the experts we spoke with today, say to not take no for an answer. So still, like I mentioned, dozens of flights canceled here today at MSP, but there are still a lot of hopeful travelers hoping to get to their destination, but definitely a chaotic morning here.
I've been there. Going to get here find out your flight is canceled. There are a few things worse. Barrett Leon, thank you. Dozens of wildfires are burning up and down the West Coast. We have a report from Los Angeles on the conditions fueling the flames. You're streaming CBS News
Mighty
24/7.
God, watch out. Somebody else is on flame. Big house that a burn down there, sir.
Washington is the seat of power on national security, foreign policy, global economics. Every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices
Sorry, sign us.
to the table. You don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper.
That's what Sinus
Understand
does.
What's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
It's the White House, Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party? Our reporters, our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
About the issues that matter most,
Immigration is really a factor right now.
that are going to be driving your decisions. What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024? Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
It can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app. We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels. A gun pipeline to Mexico. We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
It's the White House, Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party? Our reporters, our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
About the issues that matter most,
Immigration is really a factor right now.
that are going to be driving your decisions. What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024? Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our extended 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
A desperate search is underway for mudslide survivors in Ethiopia. More than 150 people had died after heavy rain triggered the disaster. Some of the victims include pregnant women, children, and police officers. Local authorities reported at least 2 mudslides in the country's southern remote region yesterday and Sunday. Mudslides and landslides are common in Ethiopia during its rainy season, which is expected to last until September. Multiple wildfires are burning across the western U.S. Crews are battling dozens of fires in Oregon. That includes 4 so-called mega fires in the eastern part of the state. That's a term used when a wildfire burns more than 100,000 acres. And officials say the wildfire sparked by fireworks in Riverside, California is now fully contained. One firefighter suffered a minor injury, but no deaths have been reported. CBS News national correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti is in Los Angeles, about an hour and a half west of Riverside. Jonathan, what more do we know about these fireworks that apparently started this wildfire?
And Lindsay, good afternoon to you. We're specifically talking about the Hawarden fire in Riverside County. It burned 500 acres. Officials this morning confirming that fire was sparked by fireworks, saying that a group of people, those suspects, were captured in the act on video surveillance and then seen fleeing the scene. They remain at large. Officials promising they will capture them and prosecute them to the highest extent in Riverside County. Like much of California, it is illegal to use fireworks. 6 homes were destroyed in that fire. $10 million in damage was caused. Meanwhile, overnight in New Mexico, we're learning that the FBI is now investigating serial arsonists, possibly connected to as many as 16 wildfires since May. According to court documents, the FBI is looking for a couple, a man and a woman, for possibly starting those fires, including the deadly salt fire.
People have started the wildfire them. People have started them.
The FBI has linked them using witness testimony, shoe prints, and tire marks. 2 people were killed in that fire. Hundreds of homes were destroyed.
I mean, that is major news.
That couple remains at large.
Yeah, that Ruidoso fire changed the face of that gorgeous community. Not only was a wildfire a disaster, but the flash flooding after. I mean, it's just shocking news, Jonathan. And we mentioned dozens of wildfires burning. Where is it the worst, and what are the conditions that are fueling the flames?
Yeah, Lindsay, to your point with Ruidoso, there was that deadly domino effect. You had the fire, and then with all the vegetation gone, when you had that flooding, that water had nowhere to go. Focusing on wildfires here in the West, Oregon is the worst hit. You have 18 major fires burning there. Several of them, hundreds of thousands of acres have been burned. Triple-digit heat is complicating the response there, along with the remote terrain that fire crews have to respond to. Here in California, you have about a dozen wildfires that are burning. Elsewhere, we're talking New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and even Colorado have wildfires. So far this year, more than 3 million acres of land have been scorched by wildfires. If you put that in perspective, looking at the same time last year, only about 800,000 acres of land had been burned. We were actually in a conference yesterday, a training group with CAL FIRE here, who told us and warned of a volatile wildfire season ahead, specifically looking at this past winter when we had the atmospheric rivers dumped trillions of gallons of water and snow that led to vegetation growing back. And now in the summer, with all the heat, you have that vegetation drying out, presenting perfect fuel for wildfires. The worst of the season really hits starting in September and the fall, when the vegetation really dries out and when the wind picks up, Lindsay.
Yeah, rainier winter and then a hotter than usual start to the summer. So what about air quality? Has that been impacted, Jonathan?
Always a concern. Here in California and much of the West, we're not seeing major impacts from the wind, but in California, in Colorado rather, a much different story. You have several wildfires burning there. In higher elevations, you have that lingering smoke, and officials are warning people to stay inside until the smoke clears. Obviously, good warnings for them, and also good warnings for people here in much of the West when the wildfire season really starts to pick back up with more of that smoke funneling through, Lindsay.
Okay, Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you. The California State Fair is considering changing its future start date because of high temperatures. The annual fair in Sacramento is typically held in July, but staff members are recommending it should be pushed back to September. Last year's fair had 10 days with triple-digit temperatures, and at this year's fair, there have been at least 7 of those days, with a few days remaining. The Cal Expo of Directors is still considering the date change. As the West Coast deals with those hot temperatures, people on the East Coast are bracing for potential flooding this week. Meteorologist Jen Carfagna from our partners at the Weather Channel has the forecast. Hi, Jen.
Well, good day to you, Lindsay. We've got more showers just like this in the Northeast, in the Southeast. We just can't seem to shake this pattern of summer showers and thunderstorms here. All kind of new slow. Some have thunder and lightning, and some have some pretty heavy rainfall potential, which could lead to flash flooding. We've seen some problem spots already this week, like in Dallas earlier, and we'll have to keep an eye on other cities as we get through this week. D.C. and Baltimore, we've got rain coming in. Some could be heavy at times. In particular, the rain down here across the Gulf Coast, like around Houston and moving up into Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. We've got heavy rain potential there. That's where we may get 3 to 5 inches of rain, potentially some areas 5 to 8. That's the kind of rainfall, when it comes at a big enough rate, that could lead to some flash flooding concerns here. And we don't even need the rain really there. We do need the rain in other spots. We've seen the drought continue to get worse this summer, especially at the start of the summer, the month of June. Very dry in Alabama and Georgia and South and North Carolina and up in Virginia, including into the D.C. area. So we've got the extreme drought going on. It is good to finally get some rain rain chances coming in here. Meanwhile, the heat is on. If we don't get the showers, we're heading up to 92 in D.C. The heat is really on in the west because we don't have a lot of rain out there. Some good news for the west. We're finally going to break this triple-digit heat and get a break from that by the time we get into next week, getting into the beginning of August. But now we look at the likely above average temperatures building across the middle of the country. We're likely to go up above average in Chicago, in Minneapolis, and Detroit. As we get into the start of August, the southeast gets a little bit of a break actually from the heat at this time. Generally, that means more showers and thunderstorms. You can get updates to the forecast for your neighborhood with the Weather Channel on cable or live on your favorite TV streaming device. Lindsay, back to you.
Jennifer Faulkner, thank you. Jeopardy host Alex Trebek is being honored almost 4 years after he died. What you can now buy to celebrate him forever. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Go to the ends of the earth right now. We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Tom.
Yes, it's my tongue back. Hey, this is pretty fun.
Oh, wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking,
What's the idea of being in the vein?
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores this system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With a 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where
You're
I
there.
cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift. I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today. I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shining faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS News.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone,
This could happen to anybody.
and sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shining faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach. Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with the baby.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
From rising temperatures to stormy weather and wildfires, a new survey shows climate change is impacting Americans' mental health. Michael George reports from New York.
It's been a summer filled with extreme heat, storms, and wildfires, all events that have been increasing in recent years. Jordan Ansberry says climate change is on her mind.
It is stressful because it's like, what is this going to look like in 10 years, in 20 years? If I want to have kids one day, like, what are they going to go through?
More than half of adults say climate change is impacting their mental health, up from 48% in 2022, according to the American Psychiatric Association.
Individuals are worried about climate change, and that's what we think most about in terms of how it affects mental health. But it also affects it in a number of other ways. We know that there are direct impacts of heat on the brain. We see that the rate of suicides and violent crimes go up during heat waves.
Dr. Joshua Wartzel is chair of the APA's Committee on Climate Change and Mental Health.
And then there are the trauma effects of natural disasters from climate change and our distress about what we're seeing in the world around us.
The survey also shows more than half of Americans are anxious about the way the government is dealing with the climate change issue.
They can definitely speak to a mental health provider if they're feeling particularly distressed, as if this is affecting their thoughts of wanting to live or their more immediate well-being. They should certainly seek out emergency mental health care.
Robert Rosso says the recent heat waves are taking a toll.
It stresses me out because it's like almost feels like the embodiment of the whole climate change thing. It's like it's here and it's like outside when I walk outside.
Younger people, Black and Hispanic people, are more likely to cite the effects of climate change on their mental health. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Tennis star Andy Murray says he will retire after this summer's Olympic Games in Paris. The three-time Grand Slam champion was unable to play in the singles tournament at Wimbledon earlier this month after he underwent surgery on a spinal cyst. The 37-year-old is also the only player in history to win 2 gold medals in men's singles at the Olympics. Murray wrote on social media he is excited to compete for Team Great Britain one final time. Warner Brothers Discovery says it will match Amazon's annual $1.8 billion bid for NBA broadcast rights. TNT has aired NBA games since the network launched in 1988 and has featured the popular Inside the NBA show since 1989. But it was not part of the NBA's new media rights deal, which includes Disney, NBC, and Amazon Prime Video. The NBA says it's reviewing the match offer. The United States Postal Service has released its eagerly anticipated stamp honoring the late Jeopardy host Alex Trebek. It became available yesterday, which would have been Trebek's 84th birthday. The forever stamp on your screen features the Jeopardy-themed prompt. This naturalized U.S. citizen hosted the quiz show Jeopardy for 37 seasons. Underneath, you see the answer written, "Who is Alex Trebek?" Trebek died in 2020 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. Coming up throughout the afternoon on CBS News 24/7, Vice President Harris holds her first rally as the likely Democratic nominee for November's election. President Biden returns to the White House after being treated for COVID. And crews throughout the West try and gain control of the many massive wildfires spreading throughout the region. We're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here? What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that article?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told them that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What does that mean?
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take it.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has that glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America.
We're going to call this chicken piccata.
We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good? Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
If we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
Hunger, yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app. America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
It's the White House, Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you.
About the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now.
They're going to be driving your decisions. What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024? Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here. We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way, take you places and teach you new things, and we make you feel like, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'm John Dickerson. Join me for the Daily Report, weekdays on CBS News 24/7.
Hey, let's go.
You guys good?
Hey.
All right, we good?
Keep going. The clock, it's ticking.
Off we go.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
Tonight, the Secret Service director steps down following the Trump assassination attempt. Is there more fallout ahead? Then, forgotten by headlines, one town's battle to rebuild after a twister. And where VP Harris is making her first campaign stop on the CBS Evening News.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser. It's 4 o'clock here in New York, 1 p.m. on the West Coast. Vice President Kamala Harris held her first official campaign rally today near
Guys, I'm taking a break. I'll be back later on.
During her remarks,
If you just the first time watching me, like the notification and subscribe.
She also said she will put her record against Donald Trump's, quote, any day of the week.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected